Okay, with this video, we're continuing our discussion of AUC Section 315 with risk assessment procedures and related activities. In the last video, we discussed high-level risk assessment procedures with this 315.05, but here we're going to take a look at 315.06a. But we see here that overall, '06 says that the risk assessment procedures should include each of these three items. That's inquiries of management, analytical procedures, and observation and inspection. And each of these procedures goes in pretty in depth in the explanatory material. So we're going to take each of these separately in separate videos. So for this particular video, we'll talk about the procedures that we need to do for inquiries of management, appropriate individuals within the internal audit function, if there is an internal audit, and others within the entity who, in our professional judgment, may have information that's likely to assist us in identifying risk and material misstatement due to fraud or error. And so that means we're going to have to sit down and have extended discussions with a lot of different people at our client. And so let's go down to explanatory material section A6 through A13 to get some more details on how we go about doing this. Okay, so now we're down in the explanatory material section as it relates to inquiries of management that we're required to do as part of our risk assessment procedures. First, it says much of the information that we obtain from our inquiries. We will obtain that information from management and those responsible for financial reporting. And that's because these are the people who know about the financial information that's part of our audit. So, of course, we need to speak with those people. But we also might obtain information from the internal audit function if they have one, or other people within the entity, for instance, those in operations or on an as-needed basis. But for the most part, we'll be performing our preliminary inquiries, at least, with management and people that are connected to the financial reporting process. But some other people outside of management or the financial reporting process might be helpful. Those might be the people charged with governance, for instance, the board of directors. And we remember from our videos of AUC Section 260, we're supposed to establish a two-way communication with the board. And so we might do that in connection with our inquiries of them related to the entity's environment. We might also have inquiries with employees that are involved in initiating, authorizing, and processing or recording complex or unusual transactions. And these people might be involved in the financial reporting process, so we will have already talked with them, but there may be different people that authorize or process different transactions. For instance, if the organization maybe buys a new big factory, there might be someone outside of management or financial reporting that actually authorizes or initiates that transaction. So it might be helpful for us to talk to them to understand what happened in the transaction that maybe those in management or financial reporting might not be privy to. We might also inquire of legal counsel regarding litigation or compliance with laws and regulations or meaning of contract terms that the entity is under. We might also have inquiries of marketing or sales personnel to understand the different strategic sales trends, marketing trends, and contractual arrangements that they have with customers. So that'd be helpful in our revenue process to understand what the contracts are composed of. And then also we might discuss things with risk management function or the information systems personnel. So discussing these people might not necessarily be part of management or the financial reporting process, but it might be helpful for us to discuss the framework that they operate under so that we can assess different risks for our own purposes. And of course, this is a dynamic process. So we don't just talk with these people in our risk assessment process and then write up a memo and table that and continue on with our audit. We actually, may follow up with them with certain things, or as we learn more information about the entity from discussions with others, we might circle back to them and see if they can corroborate some information for us or make things more clear that we didn't understand. So as we also see here, we might need to discuss matters with internal audit. The entity has an internal audit function. And so in performing its work, the internal audit probably has some insight into the entity's operations and business risks. And they might be able to tell us some control deficiencies or risks that we should know about when we're planning our procedures. And therefore, they would be really valuable to our risk assessment function. And so whether or not we intend to use the internal auditor's work in our audit documentation, we still need to have inquiries with them as part of our risk assessment process. And most importantly, we need to know about matters that they have raised with those charged with governance and outcomes of their own risk assessment process. So that would give us a really big head start on understanding the risk that we are facing in the audit. And so if it turns out that they do have findings, then those findings might be relevant to our purposes, and we might consider reading their reports of their findings. And in addition, as we found in AUC Section 240 in some prior videos, if internal audit provides us information about actual suspected or alleged fraud, then we need to take this into account in our risk and material misstatement due to fraud. And the people that are most important to us in the internal audit function are obviously those that have the appropriate knowledge, experience, and authority to discuss the things that we need to know. And that might be the chief internal audit executive or some other person in a similar role. And it might be helpful for us to have periodic meetings with that person to stay up to date. And so as we can see, they've left this requirement to allow us subjective professional judgment to determine who we need to speak with, but certainly we need to speak with management and those involved with the financial reporting, but then internal audit if they have that function. But there also may be several other people within or outside of the entity that we might hold discussions with that will help us understand our risks and where the financial statements might be materially misstated.